Hi there. Welcome to New Tracks Modeling. New Tracks is an exciting new digital opportunity to obtain mentoring to help you improve your modeling. You will meet talented modelers and manufacturers from all over the world who share their model building skills and artistic advice. Improve your modeling and increase the confidence in your modeling efforts. Share your building efforts with fellow modelers and have some fun doing it. The shows are live on Zoom and YouTube, so be sure to join in and ask your questions. Now here is New Tracks founder and your host, Jim Kello, NMRA.
Welcome. Thank you so much for joining us this evening. We're so happy that you are going to be with us and hope that you'll come back often and tell your friends about it. Before we start our show, I want to introduce Father Ron Walters for our evening prayer. Father Walters, welcome.
Oh God, as we express our creativity in creating in miniature the world around us, may we marvel at the beauty and genius which created the world and instilled in us a portion of your great knowledge and wisdom. Give success to the work of our hands, O God. Amen.
Father Ron, thank you so much for being here this evening and for everything that you do for our show. We really do appreciate it and really owe you a great debt of thank you for everything that you've done.
Thank you.
I want to make an announcement. Pat Rivard mentioned this to me earlier tonight, and this is my fault. I feel so stupid, it's pitiful. Because if there's one thing that I believe in, it's the NMRA's achievement program. And Pat says, do we notify people that they can qualify for their author certificate by doing the clinics and some of the stuff that they do on our show? And I said, Pat, as far as I know, they can. I've just never done anything about it. And he said, well, why aren't we notifying them that they ought to include that in the material that they submit? Hopefully it'll count for their author certificate in the AP. So I'm going to do that for everybody that does a clinic or does anything on the show. We'll send an email out the following day to you. And if you're interested in the achievement program and you're working on an author certificate or think you may be in the future, keep the email and just include the email as part of your documentation for that certificate. I apologize for not doing it in the past. It's one of those things I just never thought about doing. And it's stupid on my part. If there's one thing that I should have thought about, that's what I should have thought about. So if you're interested in that, we will take care of it. Tomorrow night, we have a rehearsal for our next modeling lifestyle with really a different kind of modeler than we've ever done this with before. This is both a ship builder as well as a model railroader, but some of his models are just, in my opinion, unbelievable. His talent is something that you don't see every day. His name is Joe Lavender, and we have a short video. His show is going to be on March the 2nd.
Join the modeling lifestyle at 7 p.m. Eastern Time on March 2nd, where we will feature the modeling lifestyle of Joe Lavender. Joe builds amazing tiny models of ships and trains. Many of his models are less than an inch long and have amazing detail.
And he's an awfully nice guy, and I think you're really going to enjoy meeting him and seeing his modeling and talking to him about it. You can watch the show live on our YouTube channel, New Tracks Modeling. And again, it's at 7 p.m. Eastern Time on March the 2nd. So I hope that you'll make time for him. The build-alongs that we have coming up, they're in detail. All of the information that you need to know about them is on our website, newtracksmodeling.com. But the ones that we have coming up on the 22nd of March are one by Touch Toggle, and using his Touch Toggle machines for your layout operation. Then we have Father Ron is doing one called Modeling with Inkscape, which is a 3D kind of drafting program that you can use for your CAD, and then take the CAD drawing and have it printed out, 3D printed. And that's going to start on the 29th of March. And then we've got Tom York on May the 10th, talking about the kits that he's done for us. And I think that, if you're one of the fortunate 25 people that get one of these last kits, I think you'll be proud of it. It's $40 total cost delivered to your house. And for an O-scale model by Tom York, that's about as good a price as you'll ever see. Our My Bill coming up with Chris Course is on the 15th of March. And Chris has an announcement. We're going to be doing something different starting in April with our build alongs. And I'd like to turn it over now to Chris and have him tell you about it.
All right, thanks, Jim. Got to find the slide. I dropped it real quick here. All right, what we are doing. Go to share screen and go to here. All right. Our next My Build is March 15th, 2023. To participate, of course, email your photos to railrunner130@hotmail.com, and be sure to include a picture of yourself if you haven't participated before, so we can set up your introductory slide. And the other thing that we wanted to talk about is we have in April, we are going to do a special theme show. We're going to try it, see how it works, and hopefully we'll start to do that from now on. Is we'll try to work in some themes to the different My Builds. What this is going to be is because it's going to have a spring theme, because of course April is springtime, and what we want to do this time is feature what you've done with scenery, vegetation, that sort of thing. We want to see what you guys are working on in terms of scenery. It's a slight departure from what we're used to, but that's the point. We want to take things and do things a little bit differently. So that's what I have to show you. And if you are interested in that, also email your photos to me, railrunner130@hotmail.com, and we will put those in for the April show. So anyway, back to you, Jim.
Chris, thanks so much. I appreciate so much you coming up with this new concept. I think it's going to really be important, because from month to month we can change it around and concentrate on different kind of modeling and different kind of events that we want to focus on. And again, this one's April the 26th on that for this show with the scenery and vegetation. I also want to mention that the last show that we had, February the 15th, we have had so far over 150 individual views of that on our YouTube site. So in addition to the people that saw it live and were here on Zoom or YouTube and watched it live, we've had that many that have seen that part, because we broke it out. We break out individual segments of our show each time, as well as post the total show on our YouTube channel. And for the one that covered the one that Chris did with the My Bill, has received that many individual views since we've run it last week. So that's within a week, it's had that many views. And if you missed it, it's got some great modeling on there and some really great tips. You might want to go back and see it if you haven't done so already. Now I want to talk about scholarships and introduce our chairman of our scholarship committee, Bob Davidson. And Bob, I don't want to surprise you on this, But I do want to get you involved in trying to bring us up to date a little bit on where we are. I think we've got all of our filings done now for all the legal documents, but where else, what's happening?
Well, we've had a very, very successful winter regarding the shows that we've been to. We were obviously in Springfield at the Amherst show, and then in Timonium for that show. We have coming up this next weekend will be the APMM show. We'll be at that, and then the O-Scale show will be at Hank's show, the Piedmont show, and what's been really heartening is actually we're at 497 views on the scholarship page just in the last 30 days since the first show started. So people really are scanning the QR codes at the shows, and they're going there. We've gotten a couple of applications already, and we're very heartened that and optimistic that we'll be seeing quite a few more, because it's still early. Our deadline is not until July 1st, but thanks to everyone who has helped us out with carting the banners around and the literature, and I know folks have been printing literature. We also have a West Coast kind of division out there going to a lot of shows. Jim sent me a picture this week. I'm sorry, the name escapes. Popple's Train Shop.
Mark Pogendorf
Right,
is taking it around.
So he's taking it around. So the reception has been great. We're getting a lot of great feedback. The one thing I would ask of everyone is I went into both of my local train shops here, and they let me put a little poster up. Most of them have a bulletin board with coming events and things like that, and they were more than happy to let me put up a little poster. And if you'd like to get the artwork so you can just print one out, just drop me an email. I will put it into the chat tonight. And if not, you can, the easier email is Bob Davidson at newtracksmodeling.com. So shoot me an email and I'll send you a PDF so you can print it out. But things are really going well. We are all filed. We're waiting now on the final approval from the state of Florida, and then also from the IRS on getting our nonprofit authority. So once that happens, we'll be full speed ahead. So it's an honor to be working on this and to be working with the committee. So good things coming.
Well, I can't thank you and the committee enough. You guys are just doing a brilliant job getting this started. And it ought to make everybody that contributed awfully happy to know that we've got that many people out there that are showing an interest in what we're trying to accomplish here. I mean, it's one thing to go to our website and just look around. It's something else to go to this particular page and look at what we're trying to accomplish with this scholarship, download the application and so forth. That to me shows the interest that both parents and kids have in the scholarship that we're trying to do. And hopefully next year, the 2024 year that we have this, we can even do more for the kids than we are this year. But I just couldn't be more pleased with the way that the people watching this show, number one, contributed so that we could raise the money. But number two, the way that the committee has taken this bull by its horns and has really, with the help of our attorney, Jeff Jordan, have really pushed this much faster than we ever, I think, individually ever thought was going to be possible when we first started this a month or so ago. But we've really accomplished, I think, a tremendous amount. And Bob, a lot of credit goes to you, and I can't thank you enough for everything you've done.
It's been my pleasure.
Great. All right, and if you have any questions about it, if you know of a young person who might be interested, now's your opportunity. One of these days, even if you have a grandchild that may be in grade school, one of these days, he may be able to apply for a new track scholarship, and it'll only be because of the work that you did to start it off this year. Because without you, without your contributions, and without your help in trying to get the applications in and promote this, we would never have been able to accomplish what I think is going to be the start of a really great program for new tracks. So thank you to everybody. Now, with that said, let's start the show. And number one, I'd like to come back to Bob Davidson for his workshop series. I talked to Bob earlier today, and he told me that that's all he does anymore is work on the workshop series for new tracks. So, Bob, welcome.
Thank you, Jim. It's not all I do, but let me share my screen and we'll get right into this. Yeah, let me play this. So this is actually, I think, the 7th episode here. So of Workshop Tips and Tricks with Bob. For anyone who is new, most of you have seen me before, but for over 50 years, I've been a theatrical and exhibit designer, both scenic, lighting, and graphics. I started out as a carpenter in the theater, and in my spare time, I play with trains. One little update, the last time, 2 weeks ago, we talked about 1, 2, 3 blocks. I will put this up into the chat. Coincidentally, Taylor Toolworks had this is a great little YouTube video that shows you all different ways to use 1, 2, 3 blocks for jigging and stuff. So I'll put this link up into the chat once I get done here tonight. So you don't have to try to copy all that. So that's just a little catch up. So tonight's main topic is more power tools to you. One thing I found when I was beginning to got back into building my layout is a lot of the tools that I have for working in the shop, either at work or here at home, I have a shop in my garage, a lot of them were just too big for me to really use comfortably underneath the layout. So what I thought we'd do maybe was just look at some of the things that I use, and believe I am not a paid spokesperson for the brand that I happen to be showing you, but I just hope to show you some considerations, I think, of when you are looking for tools, power tools for working around the layout. These might be some things you want to keep in mind. So on the left, you see what I normally, I happen to like the Bosch brand. Been using them for a long time. That's my standard driver on the left, which is an 18-volt driver. It's heavy, it's big, but it's got a ton of power, and I mean, it goes all day. But you see on the right is their little 12-volt drill driver, and that's what I use now down in my workshop in the basement. It's half the size. You can see that I have kind of a normal size hand, and it's just a super little tool. They have work lights on them, so as you drill, or I have both a drill and a driver. They both have lights on them so that as you work, you can illuminate your workspace. It's just a really nice little tool for underneath when you're working under the layout. And I use this exclusively downstairs now. So again, I found Bosch. There's other brands out there. But one of the things you do want to look at is, how can you, what kind of spaces can you get into? And I really love the fact that it has a light when I'm underneath. They also make a right angle. There's a whole line of 12-volt tools in this Bosch series. They make a right angle drill. They also make, some cutting tools. I happen to have this little jigsaw. I'm going to do a whole session just on cutting and blades and things like that. One thing you'll notice on this jigsaw, if you look at it, some of you may say, oh, they put the blade in upside down. That's an upcut blade as opposed to a downcut blade. That's what I use all the time. If you use upcut blades and you put a piece of tape down on the top of your board, you don't get any tear out. So You can find them. They're out there. They also make a buzz tool. I love this little buzz tool. It is so good for carving up. You can use it to carve up styrofoam and obviously wood and plaster, and they're just great little buzz tools. So something to think about. It's just an overall good cutting tool. And then these are just some of the other tools that Bosch has in that 12-volt line: a work light, sander, tiger saw or reciprocating saw. They also have a planer, they have a router, they have all kinds of stuff. One nice thing with these is in the States here, they're sold at Lowe's. And Lowe's a lot of times will have, if you buy a bare tool, you'll get a free battery and charger. So just something to look for if they happen to have a sale going. This is the other tool that I use. I use this when I actually framed out and any of the framing work I was doing. This is a little 4.5-inch trim saw. This is a plug-in saw. It's a 110-volt saw. But it's just a little handheld. It's a worm drive trim saw. These go for about $80 on Amazon. This happens to be the brand that I have. There's lots of brands out there. But instead of having a real big skill saw or circular saw, it's just a nice little lightweight tool that's easy to use around the layout. So moving over to bench tools for cutting, my opinion, and it's an opinion only, that the best tool you can have if you're only going to have one saw is to have a decent bandsaw. One of the things you want to look at, 9 or 10 inch is typically a benchtop size. You want to look for the widest blade possible. If you can, find a saw that will accept a 1/2-inch blade, because that's about the minimum you can use to do what we call resawing. Or if you're at a table saw, you'd call it ripping. So you can rip with these, you can cross cut, you could do scroll work, all by just changing blades. It's nice if you can find a multi-speed unit. And the only thing I say is they're only as good as the blade you have in them. So if the blade gets dull, throw it out, get a new one. It really doesn't pay to resharpen these anymore. Used to, believe it or not. This happens to be the bandsaw that I have, but it's an expensive saw. You don't need to get that. Here's a Wen saw that's very highly rated, under $200. So just something to think about for a benchtop saw. This is kind of cool. This is just a little mini benchtop cutoff saw. They sell it here in the States at Harbor Freight. I don't know if there's a similar thing up in Canada, but you could find this same thing on Amazon, but it's actually more money. It's just, if it's too big to cut with a chopper, this is just a really nice little, but again, it's a POS. But there's this guy Vintori. When I spend my time watching YouTube, Vintori's workshop, and he actually made a little cutting table for it. And he actually, you can watch the video, and I'll put this up into the chat as well. He shows you how to build this little off table for it. He also sells it as a kit on Etsy. I think he gets 20 or 30 bucks for it. So, between 40 bucks for this, for 70 bucks, you can have a decent little cutoff tool. So just something to think about. In terms of drilling, you don't have to have a drill press. Remember in a previous episode, we talked about these drill guides. What a drill press gives you is kind of a certainty of drilling at a right angle to your work. You get the same thing with this drill guide, probably better. Here's the kind of, again, Harbor Freight, kind of the cheapest drill press that's out there, at 8-inch, bench top. But I put at the bottom, watch out for the chatter. And we're going to talk about chatter down the road when we talk about cutting and drilling. These things have, there's wobble in the chuck. So it's only going to, if you do have a cheap drill press, always use a center punch, even in wood, to locate where you want that drill bit to be, because a cheap drill press is going to wander all over the place. Here's another one. This happens to be a pretty good rated one. Again, multiple speeds, so you could use it for both wood and metal and acrylic or plastics. So again, just something to think about. If you really want to go over the top, this, and again, I apologize, but this is what I have. I happen to have a milling machine because I do a lot of steel milling. I actually do some stuff for work. And I use this as my drill press now because it's just so stable. But it's a lot of money. So they used to be a lot cheaper. It used to be 1,100. I think it was 1,100 bucks when I got mine, which is not a lot cheaper, but. So that's kind of just, a basic thing to be able to drill and cut, whether with hand or working on a bench. So tonight's tool of the week, and this is kind of goes to the found things. I had to go get a windshield wiper blade this on Monday, and I go into Advanced Auto Parts, and they have this little 3-piece thumb. They're called thumb ratchets. They're about an inch in diameter. They're perfect to hold in your hand, and they accept either a 1/4-inch hex bit, as you can see, or a 1/4-inch drive socket. And you get all three of them for $4. So if you do have that, or again, you could find these up on the web. They're all over the place. So you may want to just look at that. That was I didn't need it, but I bought it because for $4, I said, geez, that's pretty. And they're good to get into tight places because they're so small. This week's website. Recently, I have gotten into making. I got a 3D printer, and now I have a laser printer or laser cutter. So makerstock.com, and we'll go over to that. Just a real good source, even just for buying material, raw materials. What I noticed is in their buy wood, this Koskisen birch plywood. They have here this interior thin stock, and they go down to 1/32 of an inch thick plywood. So this is the stuff that, folks like Nick up at IDLA, this is what he's using, similar to this stock. And their prices really aren't bad for the thin stuff, in a small piece, 12 by 20, $9.50. So they ship very well. They package everything with it, between hardboard and so I really I've had a lot of luck with these guys. They also obviously have MDF. You can get 1/8-inch MDF from them, bending stocks, all kinds of stuff. Just seems to be real nice, plus acrylics and other materials. So do check them out if you think about it. And again, I could put that up into the chat as well. So that's tonight's show. I'm gone next week. My wife's at the Philadelphia Flower Show. But in 2 weeks, we're going to look at some alternative materials. These are things that we use in the exhibit world and in the theater world. And we'll be talking about, and I use quite a few of them in my modeling. So we will get into that in 2 weeks. That'll be March 8th. And that's me.
Well, I appreciate it so much, Bob. Does anybody have any questions for Bob?
No questions. Boy, I tell you, I hope everyone had a good nap.
Well, no, I think you just covered it so well. Well, thank you so much, Bob.
Thank you.
Well, now I'd like to introduce Mark Pogendorf. Mark owns a hobby shop out in California, Pogies Trains, and he does our monthly show about hobby shops and what their issues are. And I think once you hear Mark talk, you'll see that a lot of the issues hobby shops have, modelers have too. So we're kind of in this together. Mark, thank you so much for being here. I know that the person you had scheduled tonight had something come up and couldn't be with us. But I want to thank you so much for all of the effort you're putting forth right now to show our banner around the West Coast at the shows out there. Because without you doing it, I'm not sure that we would be able to have the banner as many places as you're able to get it for us.
No problem, Jim. Thanks for having me. Yeah, so right off the bat, the banner was at Costa Mesa. Was the first show we did a couple weeks ago, and a lot of people took pictures of the banner. We gave away a lot of flyers. A few people even asked, but a lot of people said, oh, that sounds really interesting. And then I saw a couple people looking up new tracks on their phone while they were standing in front of that banner. So, and then we also had the banner displayed on the main aisle this weekend at the Ventura Train Show. So that's
Right.
2 train shows.
As I say, I can't thank you enough for doing it for us. And I'm sorry that the hobby shop had something come up and couldn't be here tonight. But I'll be looking forward to seeing you next week with one of the hobby shop owners to kind of bring us up to date. I would like to mention one thing while I've got you. The association is kind enough to let me get a copy of your magazine that comes out monthly. And in the not the current issue, but the issue before, you have the owner, Steve Olson of Caboose Industries, talking about what he learned at the convention that you recently had in Las Vegas. And reading the article that he had, it's amazing to me that more model train hobby shops aren't involved in the association, as I understand it, because the way he talks about that convention, it seems like he picked up an awful lot of good tips and an awful lot of things that he can use in his normal business.
Well, you're right, Jim. I was kind of baffled at how few, especially the model train industry, were at that convention. I think we were the only model train only store there, period. We picked up several new lines, including a wonderful line of new paintbrushes and some other stuff that we got. The ability to go to these conventions and contact the manufacturers, have FaceTime with them and talk about their products and the problems and get familiar with a lot of new products, and maybe something that a store was not really thinking about carrying. My wife is really wanting us to carry drones. She fell in love with this brand of drones that she wants to see us bring into the store. And I know I'd wreck them first time out, but she's actually pretty good at flying them. So we're always looking at different things. And, since you're talking about hobby shops not participating in certain things, I'm going to touch on that even with the show. I've noticed I've had several people that, good intentions, I want to come on the show. And then at the last minute, they kind of flake out on us. So I think they're just not putting a lot of thought into their future marketing. And another thing I've noticed, I've already done 10 shows this year. And I'm one of the only hobby shops that actually shows up at a Great American Train Show, or like we're going to the NMRA National Convention this year. We're going to, and that's how I survive. Especially right now, I actually reduced my hours at my store. And the reason I did that was because we have a lot of downtime in the off season where we're sitting around twiddling our thumbs. So I actually shortened my hours by 2 hours just now, starting March 1st, because that allows me to do some other things like DCC installs and repairs without being bothered with customers and some of the other things that I do. And we still get our customer base come in. They're just going to have to adjust the hours, but that allows us to do this. And then with the shows, we're getting a tremendous customer base built. Every show I've been going to, I'm getting 20 to 30 orders after those shows. And I'm about it. There's the show in Puyallup, Washington had 2 other hobby shops there. We had the biggest booth. And then the last 2 weekends, Costa Mesa had 2 other small train stores. One of them really isn't a store, he operates out of his garage. And the same last weekend. But there's so many other stores in these areas that could come to these events, even if they just had a table to let people know, hey, I have a brick and mortar store. Come by my store, see what we got to offer you. And they just don't seem to put a lot of effort into that whatsoever. I don't understand it.
I understand. Well, listen, I do appreciate it, and I won't keep you tonight, and look forward to seeing you next week.
We'll be here.
With your guests. Thanks so much.
Yeah, no problem. I've got 2 backups for next weekend. So if one doesn't work, there's going to be one anyway.
See you then. Thank you.
Okay, take care. Thanks, Jim.
Bye-bye. Well, now I want to introduce Tom Farrell. You've seen Tom many times on the show before, and he is laying some track tonight, I understand. So, Tom, welcome.
Different areas, a yard area and a town. And Phil's going to pop up my PowerPoint here in a moment.
We missed some of your early comments. I think you may have been muted or something because We didn't get to early comments.
I'll start again then. I'll get it right this time then. I haven't actually put any track down, but I have put cork down, and I have designed the yard and a town. And I have some PowerPoint slides tonight, show you my photos. This is a picture of my previous rustic buff and old Gothic. Each week I feature a photograph of the old layout, which took 15 years to build and 1 day to take out. I model an ON30. Go to the next slide. There it is in glorious color. I will feature this again. I have all these structures in the next layout, the layout I'm working on now. Okay, let's jump to the next slide. Okay, this is my main classification yard. I don't know how many of you are familiar with the late John Armstrong. He passed away in 2004. He was known as the Dean of Model Railroad Layout Design. And he used to have these things he would call givens and druthers. And my givens are that where this yard is 24 inches in depth and 8 feet in length. So that's a given. The other given is that I wanted these tracks to be on 3.5-inch centers, not only for clearance purposes, but quite honestly, you know, when you're going to have to manually unhook these cars with the great arm, you know, with the human. So you can't have the tracks too close together, or you're going to run into trouble uncoupling cars. I know we could use Katie uncoupling devices all over the place. Maybe I'll explore that. But for now, 3.5 inches on ON30 appears to be sufficient to give adequate clearance and to put your hand and pick up cars as necessary. Now, I wanted to use a double-ended yard, you know, so that means that what you see on the left is on the right, you know, as far as the ladder is concerned, but there just wasn't room. And stub-ended tracks take less space. They also provide for greater storage than a double-ended yard. That's the druthers. You know, as much as I wanted a double-ended yard, I couldn't afford the real estate. And I have a big layout room. My layout's 35 feet in length. But that was my druthers. So I considered using micro-engineering HO scale. They have a ladder track system. It allows you to make more compact ladders. It uses these condensed switches that basically they're all custom engineered to do a if a standard ladder takes you approximately in HO, or in this case ON30, you know, I got to do this from memory, approximately 20 inches. They cut that down by a third. But to be honest, I've had such poor experience with microengineering on durability issues that I stayed away from it. Perhaps they've solved their problem, but I'm sticking with Pico, which is one of the great debates in Facebook, whether you use Pico or microengineering or hand laying. I'm capable of hand laying, but there's only so much time, and I like Pico. It's just very reliable track work. Anyway, enough on that diatribe. One of the other things that I just recently decided was to have a double track main line. Now, I model ON30 narrow gauge. It's probably unheard of to have a double track main line, but my railroad, my rules. I'm designing this layout for two purposes. One, I just love watching trains go round and round. So a double track main line will give me the ability to run two trains in one direction and two trains in another without them running into one another. And then the layout is designed for operation. So the double track main line can be used as a double track, or as passing sidings. We could set it up that way. One of the key things you have to do when you put in a yard is to have what's called a yard lead. So if you see on the left-hand side of the drawing there, that has to be at least as long as the longest train you're going to run past the last turnout. So that will go off to the left. So it will exceed the 8 feet. That'll be the yard lead. There's another thing that John Armstrong used to say, thou shall not foul the main. So in other words, when you're setting up a train, you don't want to have to back up onto the main line, because if those trains are running round and round, or you're doing operation, nobody wants to stop while you have to mix up, while you're putting together a train. So to that end, I designed this yard so that from either direction, a train can leave the main line and go onto that yard lead. I designed what's called an engine runaround. So if the train pulls in from the east, it can go down that first track above the main there, stop, uncouple, and run around. The main engine can run around the stub end ladder, provided there's no cars on there, and then loop out around and go to the engine service. So basically, I've got 2 stubs, track 1 and 2, and then on the very top, a makeup track. I played around with this for about a month, so I came up with this configuration. And I looked at all kinds of details online and just researched the crap out of it. One operating session is worth 1,000 opinions. So we'll have to see how this works. I estimate it has a 22-car capacity, which should be sufficient, even though I probably have at least 50 cars. Next slide, please. So here we are. I have the cork down. So you're looking at 2 ends of the same section of the railroad. This foam is not tied to the benchwork yet because I don't have the backdrops haven't arrived. So this entire section will lift out. So I can put in the backdrop and then lift this back, put this back in place. Then I'll put in the track. The wiring is already in place. It's DCC, and I've got my bus lines in place and a 12-volt power supply bus for the tortoise machines. I am planning to use the touch toggle system from Barrett Hills, and you'll see that that vendor's going to be on the program in March, I believe. We go to the next slide. So there's on the left is how I did the cork. Is basically I put the turnouts where they would be, and then I just lined up a straight section between the 2 turnouts, and then I laid in the cork. Incidentally, a lot of guys that do narrow gauge don't use cork road bed. I happen to like the look of it, and it gives you a little bit of sound deadening. I put it down with rubber cement. I bought a gallon can of rubber cement, put that down. You can't put it down with a hard glue like a wood glue or an Elmer's glue. It just vibrates too much. The rubber cement acts as a bit of a vibration isolator. Next slide. This is the opposite side of the layout that you just looked at. So you were looking, the yard is on the island, and this town, I'm naming it Redrum for the moment. This town is located in the opposite side of the yard with the scenic divide in between the 2. So basically, this town will have a mining area, which I'll show you in a moment, the water tower, a depot, a freight station, and an industry there. School's still out if I'm going to use all those backdrop buildings. I do a lot of, before I got this configuration here, I played around with it for about a month and a half too. I kept laying things out and seeing what worked, what looked right, what didn't look right. this is why I don't design anything on CAD, because I like to visualize what I'm doing. And it just, I think you get better results doing it this way. I guess you could lay in the main line with the CAD system, but I like to do it basically old school. And again, this was all, this was a passing siding when I originally started. And then I had so many passing sidings, I said, why not just make it a double track main line? And that's how I got to that point. We go to the next slide. So this is the mining area. This is like number one there in the schematic down there. It's going to be approximately 5 inches high there. You can see the two tracks there. There'll be either, I haven't decided whether I'm going to put in a coal mine or a limestone. Jim's kind of spurring me on to put another limestone. I'm not sure yet. I could easily do either. I think I might have one limestone mine and one coal mine. We'll see where we go. But and I'm thinking of putting some dummy tracks up in the upper left there. They won't actually, they may be powered, but they won't go anywhere. There might be a tipple. This is why I like to visualize what's going on here. I will custom scratch build the mine here, which will be a very interesting project. It'll have a tipple and it'll be a really, I'm waiting to do this. This is one of my favorite aspect of model railroading is building the structures. So I'm trying to get to that point. Next slide. These are just a couple prototype ideas for a coal mine that might sit in the side of that mountain where number one is. It will be an elaborate structure, probably more like on the left than on the right. It's going to be a whole complex. And I'm really looking forward to scratch building that. That will take several months to build. We won't be able to show that one in a week's time, but it'll be a really interesting model. Okay, next slide. This is right in front of the mining area. I was dabbling with this balsa foam. I don't know how many of you are familiar with that. I'm going to put in a cut stone tunnel portal there. I started it. That'll be probably a program unto itself. But basically, I'll take a piece of plywood that I've already sketched it out and already made a couple cuts there on the left. And there'll be a keystone in there, and then surrounded, it'll be cut stone, which is basically it'll be limestone, and then that retaining wall. That's not just going to be a cut stone wall. That's going to have all kinds of. It'll look organized and planned for the first 6 inches from the tunnel. Then it's my thought to have concrete block, wood, just like it, just nothing organized, nothing planned, just like they kept adding to it. I mean, it'll look basically half-assed, which is the kind of look I want to show there. So the portal, and immediately off the portal will be, dimensional cut stone from a limestone mill, and the rest of it will be just random, block and brick and wood. And I haven't really thought it all out. Again, I'll build it on the spot and just see where it goes from there. Nothing, my typical, nothing planned, just away we go. But balsa foam's really a pretty neat material, though. I haven't really dressed those corners or anything. I just carved it out with a dental tool and a ruler, but I'm going to play around with that. Next slide. So this is more of the town. These are all scratch-built structures of mine. The water tower, the depot, that freight station's actually a kit. And then the Gleason's mechanical test equipment, that's a scratch build kit, or scratch built by me. It's not a kit. So those will be some of the industries served here. That's numbers 2, 3, 4, and 5 on the schematic. Okay, next one. Photo on the left is looking down. You see in the very back, I'm toying with the idea of putting a trestle back there and a tipple, a second tipple. So behind the water tower is a Y track that will feed a tipple. And then I was thinking having yet another tipple there just to add some visual interest. If I do that, that first building flat, won't be there. I'll take that out. I'll have to have some space between the end of the tipple and the end of the track there. And that track will be powered, but it won't go anywhere. Then on the right, I've always wanted to put an X, one of these crossings in a layout. So here it is. And they're actually quite useful. That crossing X is how I'm able to get from the main to the mining area elegantly without taking up too much real estate. And then it's just it's going to look pretty neat. I'll put some sort of controlling tower or something in that triangle, that pink area below the crossing. Be some sort of railroad oriented structure there. And I'm getting to the point. I mean, this is the part of the model railroading I like. I'm past well, I like it all, but this is the art for art's sake part. When you start putting in the structures and the scenery, and underneath this, the wiring's all in place. I just have to drop wires to my DCC bus. The next show, I'll show how I'm going to use how I'm going to put in the Taurus machines. They'll hopefully all be in by the next time I show. And yeah, so I'll take some questions here if anybody has any right now. Unmute yourself.
Tom?
Yeah.
Are you going to be able to incorporate all your buildings in this new layout?
That is a great question. I hope so. I was just thinking about that the other day. I hope so would be the best answer I can give. I hope so.
That's a good answer.
Tom, Larry
Thanks,
McDonald here. Where do you find balsa foam these days?
Online art supply store, which its name is escaping me at the moment. But just this major art supply store, I mail ordered it, these little cubes. I did buy some stuff that looks like balsa foam at Hobby Lobby. I'm going to try that, see if it works. It's like the foam they use for those fake flowers and stuff. I don't know if that'll work or not. It might be a little coarse.
Right.
I have to build a hand carve a curved aqueduct. See, I see two of you guys have trestles in your background pictures. I'm going to do a curved stone archway that I'm going to build up with basswood, and then I'm going to laminate either hand carved balsa foam on there to represent cut stone, or I'm going to cast plaster, a hydrocal or plaster blanks and hand carve the stone. I haven't figured out which way I'm going to go, but I'm looking forward to that project too.
Tom, Steve Shell here.
Mm-hmm.
I'm an 0-3 modeler, just like you.
Uh-huh.
Have you gone to many operating sessions to see what other people are doing as far as operation of a railroad?
No, but I haven't. I have a friend online, Dan Rousseau. It's not on tonight, but he lives in Dallas, Texas. When I have my railroad, you know, Dan? Well,
Yeah, oh yeah.
when I get my railroad running, when all the track's down, I'm going to fly Dan up here, and we're going to put together a few scenarios for operating sessions. I'm counting on him to, because he does this all the time in Dallas. They're not ON30. He does HO. He goes to other people's layouts that have these huge operating sessions. And we're going to put together a few scenarios, that.
Yeah. Do you have a complete picture of your layout, a complete diagram?
No. But I could draw one. I could do. I almost did one, but I ran out of time for today. I'll do one for next time. I'll have one. Yeah.
Yeah.
Again,
You're going to Al's.
Pardon me?
You're going to the 30 meet in June, right?
Yeah, and there's one in April 1st too.
Are you going to that one?
Yes, I'm going to both.
Okay. I live about 80 miles from the show. I'd like to have you come down and see. I have a layout that's set up for operation.
Oh, yeah.
Designed. And I've had, quite a few operating sessions here. And I may be able to give you some ideas of what works and doesn't work. Okay?
Yeah, that would be great.
Battery.
I can come in, there's a show April 1st, but I'll come in the day before. What I do is I drive to Pittsburgh, then I drive to Harrisburg. So yeah, we'll make contact, and maybe I'd love to do that. Yeah.
Okay.
I have a quick alternative to your balsa foam for your viaduct.
Okay.
I use the styrofoam meat trays that you get your meat in from the grocery store.
Oh yeah, that's a dense
It's about
foam.
1/16 of an inch thick. It carves very beautifully, and it takes paint like all your styrofoam.
I just had a chicken package today. It had that yellow plastic.
Yeah, that, like I say, it works great. I use it for streets and for stone foundations.
Well, there's a great idea.
Okay, I'm gonna let you get back to the show.
That's a great idea, because the balsa foam looks a little porous to me, to be honest,
Listen, I'm really glad to hear that you're going to invite Dan to join you, particularly since most of the structures on your layout he will have built.
Yeah, there's a private joke there. Yeah, correct.
Oh, good. All right, thanks so much. And next week, if you can get us a layout drawing, I think that would be great.
Yeah, I'll do that.
Thanks so much, Tom.
Okay, thanks for the questions this evening.
I just got an email from Greg Cassidy, who forwarded me an email that Scott Gear, who is the person that runs the Timonium show, the Great Scale Model Train Show, sent out to all of the vendors that were there. And one part of his email that he sent out reads like this: Jim Kello and the STEAM Scholarship. You know what STEM stands for, don't you? Of course you do. Science, technology, engineering, and math. That's the current emphasis of the National Education Agenda. But what does STEAM stand for? It stands for the same thing with the addition of art. Jim Kello, himself a credentialed master modeler, has been working to establish a scholarship program for youth who are involved with serious modeling. Thus, he and his associates have established the STEAM Scholarship Program, which adds art to the STEM program, making it STEAM. And indeed, what is model railroading if not art? Even fine art, as Howard Zane would say. Learn more about the program, and he's given me page on our website. He says, if you are a parent or grandparent who has a kid who needs some financial help with college, or do you know such a youngster? If that youngster is involved in model railroading or any modeling, contact him or her with Jim's scholarship program. You may want to contribute to the fund yourself. I did. I don't think we could ask for Scott to do much more than that, or anybody to do much more than that. This email went to all of the vendors that attended the Timonium show a few weeks ago, and he included a picture that Earl Hackett had taken with our banner at the show. So to Scott, I'll send him an email, but Scott, I really do appreciate the help in promoting our scholarship, and it couldn't have been done in a nicer way. So thank you so much. And Greg, thank you for passing it along, the copy that went to your club about the Timonium show. Thank you so much for doing that. Well, with that said, let's turn to Phil at home for his program about local clubs and NMRA divisions. Phil, welcome.
Thanks, Jim. We have a really exciting evening tonight, and I'm going to introduce a guest here in a moment. I'd like to introduce Jim Clevenger. Jim, I'm going to get you up here in a moment.
Okay.
There you are. Super. So Jim, I kind of have a set of kind of questions we ask. The point of what we do here is to try to, it's a way to try to exchange information about what, local NMRA divisions, clubs are doing in terms of helping modelers with mentoring, recruiting new modelers, et cetera. And the idea is to have a little bit of a forum for people to get ideas. So with that kind of in mind, tell us a little bit about, your role and your model railroading experiences.
Okay. That started out just like everybody else, Lionel, when I was a kid that belonged to my dad. Life got in the way and got out of it for many years. And when my son was 5 or 6 years old, I started thinking about, trying to get him in some hobbies, and visited a local gentleman that sold trains. I'm in Winchester, Virginia, by the way. I guess I should get that out there. Visited a local guy who had a hobby shop in his basement. He, sold me, I don't know, $50 worth of stuff. And this was 20 years ago. So, sold me a little bit of stuff and said, hey, we got a club here in town. You ought to come visit us. So that was the end of that. I walked in the door of the club and immediately saw two guys that I knew, and I've been in it ever since. Like I say, that's probably been, I keep thinking it's been 10 years, but when I go back and do the math, it's closer to 20. So, but we're a small club located here in Winchester. The club was started in 1982. Most of the original members are still around and still in. We've lost a few along the way. And they literally started in a room above a gas station, and they somewhat outgrew it, and the rent went up a little bit on them. So they started looking for some better options, or a better option. And through a series of events of one of the founding members, who pretty much knows everybody in Winchester and Frederick County, they ended up getting a hold of the old freight depot on 430 North Cameron Street here in town, which was it was abandoned. The bums were living in it. The windows and doors were all busted out. So the first contact they had with the railroad, they got the first phone call back, and the guy said, well, we'll give you the building, but you got to move it. And the comment that our guy made back to him was, well, if we could afford to move that building, we would have already had a building someplace and we wouldn't be having this conversation. So they went back and forth a little bit, and they ended up leasing the building for $650 a year with an automatic 3% increase every year.
How many years is the lease?
The lease was open-ended for 100 years or 99 years, but open-ended. So that meant that they could give us 90 days or we could give them 90 days and that was it. And life went on there. I guess they moved in about 1985. They did some remodeling, fixed it up and started building the layout and lived there for many years. About 4 years ago, we got a notice from the railroad that they wanted somebody to come in and test some paint for lead. And we kind of started to wonder, you know, we've been here this long and nothing's happened. What's going on now? And not long after that, we were given a notice that the building and property were actually sold. So we lost that building. There's a women's shelter next door that wanted it. And they went to the railroad and struck a deal with the railroad, and they had it in their deal that the railroad could not speak to anybody about the deal. So that was a pretty rough go. Like I say, about 4 years ago, we actually lost that building. So we went in and salvaged the structures, salvaged the control system. We run NCE control DCC system. Salvaged all the locomotives and rolling stock. We tried to salvage a lot of the track, and we did get most of it up in 4, 5, 6 foot pieces. And we have everything stored at one of the members here is a businessman local here and had some space in his facility that we have everything stored in. And we just kind of, about a year or so ago, we had contact with the mayor in Middletown, Virginia, which is just south of Winchester here, 10, 15 miles maybe. And he kind of proposed a deal to us of he's trying to preserve some land for the future. He's got some people that are interested in kind of helping him out a little bit. He's got a builder on board, and there was an old freight depot there in Middletown. B&O had years ago. I believe it was torn down in the early 50s. He wants to leave something behind and do something for the community. I think a piece of land next to the railroad tracks. He's got a builder on board who has donated $100,000 towards helping us. The idea is to build a replica of the freight depot that once stood on the property. And what we're trying to do is to raise enough money to build a building behind that to build our model railroad in. It'll be like a lease deal through the county. We'll basically run the building, and it'll give us a place to go play trains again. So that's our goal now. We've like I say, I've been in the club for about 20 years and became president, I don't know, 3 or 4 years ago. The membership has ranged from, I think we've probably been down as low as 10 or 12 to probably the highest I remember in the 20 years I've been in is maybe low 30s. And it ebbs and flows, and I'm sure everybody here has seen the same things in any clubs or hobbies you're in. People come and go, life gets in the way, and life opens up for you again, so you go in and out. So
how do you find so now you don't have a facility right now?
Correct.
So how do you meet new members, and since you're about to embark on building a layout to get people involved, what kind of things are you doing to start getting other people involved in the club?
So I'm trying to do as much Facebook as I can. I'm one of the younger members, so that's a little bit of a challenge. I've got some of them to use Facebook. I'm trying to get some more social media presence. We do 2 railroad shows a year. We've got one coming up the second Saturday in March. We do that at the Winchester Moose Club. And we've got another one second Saturday in November, and they've been doing those for years. The locations have moved around town a little bit, but we've been here at the Moose Club now probably 5 years, I want to say, maybe 6. Through the whole COVID thing, we were lucky enough, we missed one show. The March show, I guess in 2020, they shut the state down. Like, we had it on Saturday, and I think they shut the state down on Monday. I mean, we literally made it by one day. And then I guess the fall show of that year we missed, and then 2021, the spring show, we were back to back. The shows are a little smaller than they used to be. And try to advertise and get that back up to where we want it. When we did have the layout building at 430 North Cameron Street, we would also, while we were having our show and sale at the Moose, or we used to be at a fire hall, we would also open the club up and have a few guys down there running trains and have an open house.
Yep.
We had a radio personality here in town that was very friendly to trains. A couple of us went over there a few times and did some radio publicity, just go do a meet and greet and talk to him about it a little bit. And some of you may know him. His name was Barry Lee, and he was at 92.5 WINC was the radio station. And years ago, he started, Christmas was coming around and he wanted to help somebody out. So he said, hey, if everybody send me $1, we'll help these folks out. And he ended up, I don't know, I think the first year he got, a couple $100 worth of checks, and he's actually taped them up around the wall in the top of the studio. And somebody said, man, you got a chain of checks going. Well, that started, I think, over the years that he did said my connection was lost. You guys still got me?
Yeah, your audio is occasionally it's getting a little bad, but it's okay.
Yeah. Sorry, I live out in the sticks and my internet's not the greatest. So he was super friendly to us, and we were a participant in First Night Winchester for almost the entire 40 years that they were doing their thing. So we would, of course, do open houses for those. And we never officially counted, but it was easily 1,500, 2,000 people through there some years, weather dependent. And then we've had people call us and say, hey, my kid loves trains, I want to do a birthday party. Can we bring a group by there for an hour or whatever? And so we would, a couple of us would go down and run trains.
Yep.
And those were our biggest events, the first night and the two sales that we do.
So what kind of things do you do with your members now? You're not building a layout yet. Are you doing modeling as a group, or any mentoring, or any of those kind of activities, or mainly planning and working towards the new layout structure?
Yeah, the first 2 years we lost the building. Honestly, probably the first year, I think we were all just kind of just dumbstruck, I guess is I don't even know what the right word is. It just really took the wind out of us. We dropped back to meeting once a month. It kept the business meetings going. It kept the officers in the club. It kept all that up. And then when the mayor started talking to us, we started meeting every other week. And it's been a somewhat slow process, but it's picking up speed. And we've been meeting for every week now at the Moose. One of our members is the admin at the Moose Club. So, we go down there and sit down and have a little bit of dinner or a snack or something.
So
talked about some planning.
But we lost you there completely.
Okay.
We lost your audio for a moment. There you go. It's back.
Okay. Sorry about that, guys.
Oh, not a worry.
Yeah.
So just out of curiosity, have you started planning for fundraising? You said they're basically giving you a place, but you have to build the building. So
yes. So we have done some fundraising. We're looking for more. The mayor of Middletown is very energetic and has a lot of ideas. We just need to get to the point to where we start doing some of them. He wants to do like a gun raffle or a gun bash. Obviously, we've got our sale coming up in March. We're advertising. The Facebook that we are doing, and we have partnered with the mayor of Middletown and that community. He did a press release when he preserved this land and announced that we were moving to Middletown at the same time. Eric Estrada from the actor that used to play on Chips is a train buff and is friends with this guy, and the local sheriff here in town. They were there. They did a mock gunfight to bring back the steam era, stagecoaches, and we picked up quite a few donations. So we're actively fundraising. We've had a couple that have the wife has made a railroad themed quilt and donated it to us, and she wants us to auction it off. She's heavily, quilting is her hobby, and she's into it like we're into model railroading. So she's given us some tips and tricks on how to pull off a successful auction for a quilt. So
that's good.
That being said, if anyone has any fundraising ideas, we're always looking for ideas. We're always looking for members. So
yeah, I think the challenge is when you have to build a building, raising large chunks of money takes finding people with money. So it's like finding businesses to become sponsors. So sponsor walls or other things, are interesting. We've had a discussion in the local club that if we had to go build a building, one of the things we would try to do is see if we could sell, for example, a sponsorship to businesses where they would have a model on the layout that was their business. So, because the problem is to build a building is $200,000, and that's a lot of fundraising at $200 at a train show, or $500 or $1,000 even. It's a lot of train shows.
It absolutely is. Again, the mayor has knows quite a few people. The builder has donated $100,000. We've had another individual in town who just sold a large business who's donated $50,000.
So you're getting closer
close.
then.
We're close. I think somebody was telling me the other day they added up and we're right around, I believe, around 170,000. We do have some money in our treasury, so if we had to get to 200, we could get there.
Right.
But then that's gonna take our money for the railroad. So we still want to do some fundraising, and honestly, we're not convinced that 200,000 is going to be enough to pull it off.
And that's the problem. The minute you build a building like that that's in a public area, then all the ADA stuff applies, and you all of a sudden have to build buildings that have fairly expensive cost per square foot, is what we found.
Yes.
Especially when if you go build something on your own property, you can build it one way. When you build it as part of a city, anything connected to the government, you all of a sudden have to meet a whole series of requirements, et cetera, et cetera. So,
yeah.
Well, cool. Well, Jim, I really appreciate you coming and talking to us. So going through this process, there are a lot of clubs that go through this of losing their facility. You're now at the point where you have a new hope. You haven't quite gotten there, it sounds like, but you can see the light at the end of the tunnel. What are some of the learnings? Are there like a couple of learnings that you would try to convey to people, other clubs that are going through the same situation? Maybe what was the most important thing you learned that you need to focus on? And what was the thing that got you through kind of the despair of, like you said, that malaise after a year? What got you out of the malaise and looking forward?
Honestly, I just got to the point where I just missed it. That was my Tuesday evening outlet, the camaraderie and everything. And I just started telling a couple of guys, hey, you know what? I'm going to do something on Tuesday. There was a couple times we went to one another's layouts and everything. But like I say, in the mix of all this, we had the COVID. So everybody was nervous about that too.
Right.
Me included. I'm relatively young and relatively healthy, but still, nobody wanted to drag that stuff around and make their friends sick. So we probably had a year there where honestly, we just, we did some Zoom calls, We did go to like a round robin and go to one another's layouts a few times. But my advice to anybody would just be do everything you can to keep a core group together. Like I say, people are going to come in and join the group and then fade away and come back. And some people are going to come once and decide that it's not the group for them. All that stuff's okay, but just try and maintain your core group.
Cool.
I think that's what's, the
Well,
core
super,
is what's
Jim.
going to keep it going. So.
Absolutely excellent. It's kind of a bit of a heartwarming story of success. We have heard of a lot of clubs that lose a facility and just kind of fade away. So it's great to see you're rising as a phoenix and well down the path to reestablishing yourself. So
Yeah,
thanks again.
It's exciting. So, and I appreciate the invite and the opportunity to speak to you all tonight.
Well, thanks. Really appreciate it. And you all have a great week and good luck with the rest of your fundraising and getting a building designed and built. So I know that's always a challenge.
Yeah. Yeah. I think we're up for it though. We got a bunch of good folks. So
excellent. Thanks again.
Yep. Thanks for the invite.
So back to you, Jim.
Bill, I thought that was just an outstanding interview. I really did. And I learned an awful lot about the club.
Good. Well, thanks to Jim and back to you.
Thank you. Well, let's now turn to Earl Hackett to hear what he's doing now to finish his structure that he is doing in CAD and 3D printing. So Earl, welcome.
Well, here we are. You're going to see a lot of stuff tonight that you may not have ever dreamed of. Let me get this thing started. I ran into a few problems. Let me share the screen first. Share. Zoom. Okay. 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 You see that slide there right now? 1 minute.
Yes, 3D
Okay,
printing.
great.
Yeah,
3D
that's
printing,
clear.
part 4, painting and finishing. Okay, again, this is the structure I'm modeling. It's a bunkhouse, the Thurman. And the paint scheme that the CNO used for almost all their structures was a set of grays. We had the very light gray, almost white trim, a medium gray for the bulk of the building, and then the doors and windows of this very, very dark gray. This presents a problem because nobody makes those colors anymore. I have several buildings that I painted with in the past with colors that were available. I think it was from Scale Coat, but they have all since gone and turned into bricks. And the problem was, I don't want to, I could get some other grays, but I don't want, I'm building a bunch of buildings that are going to be sitting right next to each other. And you're going to look at them and say, well, why is that gray different than this? It's got to be the same. I want it to be the same color. So I looked around and I found this. You can go to, in this case, it was Home Depot, and they have a huge range of gray paint because gray seems to be a very popular decorating color nowadays. And there's literally they had something of almost 150 shades of gray. And so I took one of my models. What I did, I just grabbed the whole fistful of their color cards and put them up against my model. And when I found one that where I couldn't see the dividing line between the color chip and the paint on the model, I said, that's the one I want. And if you're any of you guys are CNO modelers, these are the ones I came up with. Was the light gray was what they call their platinum, medium gray was Rainmaster, dark gray was calligraphy, and these are the numbers that are on the can. And they brush beautifully. I use a soft bristle brush, and it looks like it was airbrushed. They're just really good paint. But when you're working with tiny little parts, brushing with for example, window sashes. These are little window sashes. Try and touch it with a paintbrush, and you just push it around. It won't stay still. It won't hold still. And I need paint on both sides. So I came up with, I've got a Badger 150, 30 PSI, and we diluted the paint down to somewhere between cream and heavy cream. Some recommend you thin it down to milk, but that's too thin. And now the Badger is also a top feed. You put in a couple drops at the top and spray that out, run some thinner through it, some water, and spray that out. And it keeps the gun nice and clean. Now, I've only sprayed the dark gray so far. Now you'll see why in a few minutes. But about 2 parts of paint to 1 part of thinner got the job done. Now, when I say thinner, this is what I use. I found this somewhere on the web. I found this. I can't remember where, but it was a formulation they cooked up, and it's 120 mils of water, 60 mils or a quarter cup of isopropanol, and 10 drops of Winsor Newton flow improver. Now, you can get that at Dick Blick Art Supplies. But what it is a 25% solution of Triton X100, which is non-ionic surfactant. I happen to have a quart of it down in the basement, so I make my own. And also recommended, you might want to do this, but I don't like the idea of putting something in the paint that isn't going to go away. Glycerin will slow the drying time, but it's going to stay there, and that may affect the durability of the paint film. So I just didn't use it, and everything worked out pretty well. The airbrush cleaner, very similar formulation. It's 175 mils of water, 120 of isopropanol and Windex. Again, some people put glycerin in there, and maybe it'll lubricate the airbrush. I don't know, but I just didn't bother with it. So here's what I'm using. This bottle here is the thinner. This is the cleaner, and it's a good thing the Windex is in there because it's blue and you can tell the difference. And I put the paint, after I diluted it, in a small dropper bottle like this. You drop a few drops in there, spray away when you run out of paint, flush it with a little bit of this, a little thinner, clean it out, and put a few more drops in and blaze away. You could probably put, what you don't want to do is fill the cup up, because what's going to happen, it's going to start to evaporate and you're going to wind up with lumps, and then you really mess your airbrush up. So I put in maybe a milliliter or so, about 10, 15, 20 drops, and spray that until it's done, and then clean it and load it up again. And the stuff, it just sprayed beautifully. It was one of the nicest spraying paints I've run into. Now there's a bigger paint problem. These latex paints don't stick to 3D printed resin prints. And I said, oh crap. I tried solvent-based paints, Floquil, I have some of that still, Scale Coat and True Color. They all displayed pretty good adhesion, excellent adhesion. I have not tried automotive lacquer or enamel paints, but they should work well too, because they're a solvent. They'll penetrate and attack the surface of the resin, and basically allow the paint to grab hold of it. So it'll soften it, and the paint and the resin will just meld together and form a good strong bond. If you try the water base, they stick. I mean, if you don't touch them, they'll be fine. But if you handle them, a small scrape with your fingernail scrapes it right off. So the solution for this was to prime it. And I grabbed some primers. These three here, I tried them all. Spray them on as a primer at a very, very light spray. I mean, you stand back and just over it, and you don't need to have a full color match. You just need a little bit on there to provide some tooth for the acrylics to grab hold of. And then somebody asked about joint repair. Well, this is what I use: Bondo, glazing, and spot putty. I've had that tube for probably 15 years. And where two parts don't fit, you can pack that in, sand it down, and it cleans it up. This is on the model. There was a join there that I had. That's the side that's going to be facing the aisle. So it's you really want to clean that up. So you put the spot putty on, Bondo on there, let it dry, and you file it to sand it to the desired contour. In this case, it does shrink a lot. You can't put a whole lot on there. You don't try and do it in one blob, because it'll shrink. As it shrinks, it'll crack, and that just defeats the whole purpose. You got to start over again. And this took two applications to fill that crack. I'm going to have to do some touch up. Now this is a mistake I made. Remember I mentioned that you really want to hide joint swell, the joint between the building and the foundation. I didn't hide. I really should have extended the wall a little bit further and dropped it down inside that the girder there, what serves as the part of the foundation. It's actually part of the building. But if I had dropped it down inside there, you wouldn't see that's going to be a bugger to correct. It's not glued down right now, but I'll probably glue it, put some clamps on it and squeeze it down so it's as little, at least less unobvious as I can make it. Now, windows. This is another thing. I build my windows with separate sashes and a frame. And I wanted to have a very thin glazing material so that I could open a window and you can see that it's open and the glazing doesn't get in the way of opening it. Even the thinnest clear plastic just didn't work out well. And so I tried a while ago to build glaze some windows with stretch wrap, food stretch wrap that I'd stretch out over a table board and drop spray some adhesive on them and drop them on. And that worked, but the stretch wrap would have wrinkles in it. I didn't like that. Then I got the idea of trying cellophane. And this is where I got it. It's just these clear plastic gift bags. I got it at Mitchell's. I guess it's Mitchell's. Yeah. You get a pack of these for a couple $, and it'll last you the rest of your life. These are the window sashes. They've been painted with the white Krylon, flat Krylon. And how do you glue glazing to them? Well, I tried spraying adhesive. I tried all sorts of things. I tried spraying adhesive on them, and I tried to drop them onto the cellophane, but of course they're stuck to my fingers, so that didn't work. I tried applying a conventional adhesive to the cellophane. We tried Duco cement, 3M glass. That didn't work. It just was ugly. So I tried some non-standard adhesive. A lot of people use these hairsprays, and I have never had much luck with them. My wife gave me this. This is a freezing hairspray. This thing sounds supposed to be really tough. Didn't work, at least not very well. So I went back to my Krylon. I used in this case, not the matte or satin version, but the gloss clear coat. I've been using these clear coats to glue foliage together for several years now. So I gave that a try. And I just sprayed the cellophane with it. And while it was still wet, dropped the window sashes onto it. And there's the result. So what I'm looking at now, I found if I could array these, I'm just doing that before, I was starting to do this before the show. Take a bunch of these window sashes, lay them down on a flat surface, spray the cellophane, and flop the whole thing right down on top of them, and just give it a light rub, let it dry, and then peel it back up and see what happens. I'm going to do that. These are just quick and dirty test specimens to see if things work, but they're stuck. They are really stuck on there, and they're not coming off. So now comes the roof, and I was not happy with what I wound up with, but it worked okay. The basic structure, they have remember I had those the framework there, and I didn't see how I could put glue on the frames and then try and get the plastic on there. I needed something that was going to be stiff enough to not sag between the frames. So I finally decided I'm going to try this, and I took some 77 spray and really hosed the back of that plastic down. It was all pre-cut and ready to go. Pick it up, slap it on there, and you have maybe 5 seconds, 10 seconds to adjust its position before that 77 spray starts to really set up, and you can't slide it around anymore. But once you get it in there, it worked very well. It really worked well. And I did the same thing with the paper that I was going to use for the tar paper. An HO scale 3-foot wide roll is 10.5 millimeters. So I got a 5 millimeter grid paper from Amazon, and that gives me lines for 10 millimeter spacings, which gives me a scale 2 millimeter overlap. Paper was sprayed with 77 spray, and then just positioned it on the styrene sheet with the lines nice and horizontal and everything. And now you have lines to apply your tar paper. And this is what it looks like at this point. I was not at all happy with using paper or gluing it down like this. It just doesn't look right. And right after I had done this, I said, I have a little plastic shed, little hand car shack. And I noticed that they had cast the tar paper seams into the roof. And I looked at that and I thought, well, that's a good idea. And I painted it and they look great. So the next trick is to try and figure out how to print the tar paper seams. I don't know if I can do it, but I'm going to try a couple experiments to see if it can be done. And if I have a bunch of little sheds that I have to make, and that's what I'm going to try and use, actually print the lines for the tar paper, and then all I have to do is paint it. Okay, so that wraps it up for tonight. There's a lot of stuff there that probably people haven't thought much about. But anybody have any questions?
Hey, Earl, Greg.
Yeah, shoot.
A little bit back when you were talking about the difficulties of getting a water-based paint to stick, and you used a basic spray primer, which, they're kind of a heavy coating. One thing I've done in a couple of cases over both resin, 3D printings, and castings is use AK resin primer. It's a very thin primer that sticks really well to those type of resins, and most any airbrushed water-based paint will stick to it. And I've had pretty good success with that. It's not cheap, but you can find it on Amazon. It's AK resin primer.
Okay, I'll take a look at that.
Mm-hmm.
Earl, this 77 that you sprayed the plastic with, will that work on any other material, wood, for example?
It works on just about anything. The only thing it doesn't work on is Teflon. It's sticky beyond belief.
It works on your fingers real good.
Oh yeah, it's good for your fingers.
I like the idea of laying down the cellophane and spraying it, and then just dropping the window frames on it. That makes a lot of sense to me.
That works pretty well. The only problem is that spray dries pretty quickly, and you have to get them on there while it's still wet.
Right.
So my thought was, I got literally hundreds of these things to do, so I got to find a way to do a bunch of them at once. So I'm thinking spray the cellophane, have them all laid out in a nice tight grid. Spray the cellophane, just flop it down on top of the whole bunch of them.
Yep.
And see if that works. I won't do it with the good prints that I've used. I'll just make up a bunch of quick and dirties that just, you notice the ones that they're a little oversprayed with the primer. It's just really thick. So I have a bunch of them that I just use those for test pieces, see how it works. Hopefully I'll have it.
We'll look forward to hearing about how that works out next week.
Yeah, because I hope to have the windows all framed in and done next week.
That's great. Anybody else have any questions for Earl? Earl, thank you so very much. Look forward to seeing you next week.
All righty. Take care.
By the way, thanks so much for doing the Timonium show for us.
Oh, you're welcome.
The comments that Scott included in his email that had to come because of the effort that you put forth, and I really do appreciate all the help that you've been in taking our banner and setting it up and representing us at that Timonium show.
Yeah, there's not a problem at all.
Thanks so much.
Okay.
Well, that's pretty well it for tonight. We would like to end it with our normal caboose. So Phil found this for us, and I'll let him play it for us. How much do you want to bet that within 2 or 3 weeks, somebody like Alan Littlefield or some other ON30 modeler is going to be posting a picture of the model he built of that on Facebook? I can't wait to see it. I know it's going to be a fantastic job. Well, that's it for tonight. Thanks so much for joining us. We really do appreciate it. We hope that you've learned something tonight. After all, that's the most important part of our shows. We hope that you did. We hope you enjoyed the show too. So thank you so much. Happy modeling until next time.